Welcome to the show Retirement Right by Outlook Money. This episode is in association with HDFC Pension Management Company Limited, along with Outlook Money. Now, retirement planning is an issue that is often ignored, but it is the need of the hour for people to wake up to this need. That's because life expectancy is increasing in India. There is hardly any social security scheme related to retirement, and more people are now living alone in their sunset years. Today's topic of discussion is therefore the need for retirement planning. And we have with us today Sriram Iyer, Chief Executive Officer, HDFC Pension Management Company Limited, to shed light on this topic. Mr. Iyer has been passionate about financial literacy and spreading financial awareness during his 30-year-long career. He was recently recognized as one of the top 20 pension fund executives in Asia as well. So, welcome, Sriram. Welcome to this episode.
Thank you, Nidhi.
Uh,
Thanks for having me.
so, I'll start right away with a very basic question, which pertains to the topic today. Is about what do you think? Why do you think there is a need for retirement planning in India? If you could just elaborate on that.
Sure. I think that's a very important question that we need to address upfront, right? So I think if you look at, India as a country, we are an incredibly young country. The median age of our population as of 2023 is just 29 years old, which means that over 70 crore Indians are below the age of 29. The remaining 70 are above the age of 29. But I think what's even more important to note is that the number of elderly people in India, which is defined as people above the age of 60,
Right.
actually is upwards of around 13.5 crores, right? So 13.5 crores is the last number that I read somewhere. I think that number is actually quite staggering. And if you look at the number and compare it to the population of a bunch of countries in the Europe, actually it's larger than the population of, let's say, 5 to 6 of the smaller countries in Europe. So I think the size of the population of elderly people in India is actually fairly large, right? That's number one. Now,
Hmm.
not only is it large at this stage, but we also need to keep in mind that as time progresses, as we head towards 2047, right, which is 100 years of India's independence, you will also see that this number is going to bulge. In fact, our statistics suggest that this number or this percentage, it is around 7% of the population as we speak, that number is likely to go up to 14 to 15% of our India's population at that point of time. So even if you assume that, at a population level of, let's say, 145, 150 crores at that point of time, this number of 15% is going to be upwards of 20 crore people, which is a very, very large number. So that's number one. So one is the, size of the population as we speak, and the fact that it is going to, expand rapidly over the next 20, 30 years. That's one big reason. The second thing that I think we must keep in mind is that the social structure in India is changing, right? I mean, 20, 25 years back, we had more joint families. Families are getting more nuclear now. You will see that, and there is data to suggest that the number of people per household has actually come down from, from the numbers that we see, it's come down from something like, 4.6 in 2001 to something like 3.7, 3.8 in 2018, which means that the number of people per household is coming down, and therefore, the dependency, and therefore the number of people that you can actually depend on for your old age income is actually shrunk. This whole joint family structure used to provide, in some sense, a sense of security to individuals. That has sort of changed completely, and it is also changing fairly rapidly with the with urbanization and with changing more in the government, in the overall society. Finally, I think we also need to keep in mind that if you look at the number of elderly people that are actually dependent on somebody else, today, 52% of elderly people are dependent on either their child or somebody in their immediate family for the retirement needs, right? That's a stark number. So all of these factors, right? I mean, the fact that we have a large population of elderly people at this point of time, and that is going to change rapidly, the change in our, the social structure, all of these things combined is going to mean that we need to, as a nation, plan for this, and this is something that can otherwise turn out to be a ticking time bomb. And as you see, other elderly nations with elderly populations, they're very high, are facing those problems and challenges, even though they have much higher GDP per capita, even then they're struggling with this situation. And therefore, it is high time that we take this very, very seriously and address this and take this head on.
Absolutely. Those numbers are something that to chew about for our viewers. And especially since you highlighted that, people are living alone now, people are moving towards nuclear families, etc.
Yeah, yeah,
The other aspect is also that, inflation is also increasing day by day. And with rising life expectancy,
absolutely.
perhaps, people need a larger corpus. So what do you have to say about that?
So I think you've struck a very, very important, sort of struck on a very important note, which is the issue of inflation. And I think this is not very well recognized. The reason why I say this is that as human beings, we are all wired to think very short term, right?
Hmm.
So if I were to tell somebody that a 14% inflation would effectively mean doubling over a period of 5 years, the person would find it very difficult to comprehend it, right? So all of us are find it very difficult to comprehend the kind of impact that inflation can play havoc with our finances. And when you actually convert that into real numbers is when the truth comes home for most people, right? The other thing that I want to point out is that for majority of us, the inflation that gets typically published in papers, which is the CPI or the WPI, the CPI, which is more relevant to consumers, is actually only partly relevant, right? Because if you look at the constitution of the basket, 55% of the basket is actually food and fuel, right?
Hmm.
If you look at our own expense pattern of most Indians in the, let's say, the mass affluent category, the expenses on food and fuel would possibly be less than 5 to 10%, which means that the items that they are likely to consume, some of them being discretionary, some of them as old age, as you progress towards old age, medical expenses is something that one needs to be cognizant of. Some data points seem to suggest that while medical facilities are getting more accessible, but cost of medical procedures are inflating at a very, very rapid rate. In fact, there are some procedures where we were looking at some data points, and it suggests that the inflation in some of these medical procedures, which are actually quite commonly carried out by in old age, are actually inflating at 14-15%, which means that it's doubling every 5 years. Now, unless and until you take cognizance of the fact that not only do you need sufficient corpus at the time of retirement, because most likely you're going to survive way beyond 80, 85, which is good news, right? By the way, surviving longer just shows that the society, the health of the society is improving, health span is improving, right? Lifespan and health span being ability to live healthily without any active support. So if you look at these parameters, while as we progress as a nation, our mortality is going to improve, right? With that comes the problem of saying, okay, if you retire at the age of 60, a salaried individual typically retires at the age of 58 or 60. It is highly likely that you will be surviving way beyond 20 to 25 years. In fact, there are enough and more instances where people are living beyond number of years more than what they have actually worked. So even if you start working at the age of 25 and you've worked for 35 years, it is quite possible that you're well into your 90s, and you need to therefore make provisions to take care of not just the fact that you need to have a sufficiently large corpus at the time of retirement, but the corpus will need to be deployed in a meaningful manner such that it is able to last you for another 20, 25, 30 years, not just for you, but for one spouse as well, right? So
Right.
I think, this is something that is very critical, and therefore this point that you made on inflation is absolutely spot on.
Yeah. So, in fact, you were also mentioning that, how people are also living in the 90s. And, at Outlook Money, we keep talking to planners and other people also. And, in fact, a lot of them say that they plan for 100. Like when they make a
Hmm.
financial plan, they assume that the life expectancy is 100.
Right.
Uh, but still, we are like our generation, the middle-aged generation, the younger generation are seeing their parents, grandparents living a longer life than usual, what they've seen in the past. And yet we see a reluctance among people to plan for their own retirement. It's still,
Hmm.
something like that. It's very far away for me. So, why do you think that attitude is existent, and what can be done to kind of fight that?
Fantastic question. In fact, we conducted an NPS awareness study last year, and we intend doing it every year, and we'll do a refresher of that. We created what was called as an NPS preference index, and we'll come to that later. But one of these segments within that survey that we did across Indians across the length and breadth of the country, both self-employed and salaried across age groups, was what are the barriers for retirement planning, right? And there were some very interesting findings that we came up with, and some of them are intuitive, some of them are a little counterintuitive as well, right? The top amongst this is actually the belief that they have enough provisions for the future, right? Which I thought was very shocking. I thought that the need for retirement planning, in some of these cases, people felt that they had enough, right? Now, whether adequacy, when they say they have enough, does it really mean that they understand related to the earlier point that you made on inflation, right? Do they really understand what enough means?
Right.
Is an open question. In fact, the other thing that came out on a related point is that individuals felt that a 1.3 crore corpus is sufficient for them to retire. The range was around 1.4, 1.32 to 1.4, so around a median of around 1.3 crores. Majority of the respondents felt that 1.3 crores was a large enough corpus for them to retire into eternity, which I think is a shockingly low number, by
Right.
any yardstick. Even if you were to say that you don't have a very, let's say, very, luxurious lifestyle, even a normal lifestyle, that if you were to lead a normal lifestyle for the next 25 to 30 years, you would need multiples of this amount, right? So one is therefore this belief that there is sufficient money that I have, and that money that they seem to believe is enough is 1.3 crores, which was a little counterintuitive, a little shocking. The other thing which I think tops the chart is the fact that knowledge around retirement planning is abysmally low. Not just retirement planning, but knowledge around, while it has improved, I think the industry has done a lot of work, the banking and financial services industry as a whole, across insurance companies, investment firms, asset management companies, and the SROs and organizations that are really promoting awareness around financial products. Certainly, it has gone up, right? But I think we're still a long way away from achieving much higher degree of financial knowledge, right? And I think we need to start early, very, very young. And that's an altogether different topic. But I think awareness on financial products, despite the number of, let's say, demat accounts being more than 13 crores, number of unique mutual fund investors being, let's say, upwards of 3 crores, and so on and so forth. All of these statistics seem to suggest that more Indians are buying financial products. So financialization of savings seems to be happening. But that does not equate to knowledge around financial products, right? So one is participating in them. The other is, it's great to see that there is higher participation in the form of systematic investment plans. There is higher penetration of term insurance and so on and so forth. But the reality is that, do they really understand how all of this comes together? And I don't think the answer for that is very, very clear. And in fact, even in our own interactions with people who work in financial services firms, people who are in finance departments, and industry in general, because we do a lot of industry outreach, as far as our NPS business is concerned and our retirement planning business is concerned, and we see that awareness levels are very, very low, even at very senior levels, right? At the age of 57, somebody will say, now I need to plan for my retirement, right? Sadly, it's way too late.
Yeah.
But I think the awareness levels is the second point that I would like to. So one is people feel they have enough. Second, awareness around how to bring all of this together is missing, right? A lot of people seem to believe that real assets like gold and real estate are good enough for them to retire. I mean, that could be partly true, given the fact that they do have, there is some liquidity and there is some regular income that one can draw out of these. But I think financialization of savings is absolutely critical. And I think that is one area where I think we as India and we as Indians have a long way to go. The other thing, given the fact, again, related to the fact that, the median age of our population is 29, a large number of people that we interact with, and especially the Gen Z, as they are called, or I'm told there is another term that is there for it. I don't know what that term is, Gen Z Alpha or something like that, but whatever it is, I'm told that, and in this community, and we interact with a number of them, because we work with a number of large ITES companies where this kind of this cohort of population is much larger. There, the need for retirement planning, as in they just think that it is way too early, right? I mean, why should I, at the age of 25 or 26 or 27, even bother about retirement? I'll start thinking about it, maybe at some point of time in the future when I really feel the need. At this point of time, I would like to consume. At this point of time, I'm more interested in maybe investing in some, fancy newfang idea of, let's say, a cryptocurrency and stuff like that. But retirement planning, it's a very boring subject. They don't even want to engage on that, right? The other thing is that I think we have to recognize the fact that India at this point of time is a low-income country, right? There is a segment of the population where small segment of the population right at the top, where average income will be higher, but a large segment of the population still have low levels of income, even within the salaried segment, right? Therein lies the problem, right? Because for them, the priority is to make sure that they're able to lead their day-to-day life comfortably, right? They have numerous emergencies, they have numerous demands on their cash flows, right? And therefore, what happens is that a topic such as this, saying that you need to keep something aside for your old age, just doesn't occur to them, right? That's the reason why a large number of people, though they would want to, but their ability to save is hampered by the fact that the cash flow itself is very, very low. And I think that's another problem that, of course, as India gets more, our growth rate improves, and as we continue to grow at the rate at which we are growing, more and more Indians will, come out of, let's say, the bottom of the pyramid and come up the pyramid. But I think the average incomes for a large segment of the population is still low, and therefore their ability to save is also, compromised on account of that. I think these are 3 or 4 broad reasons why, these are some of the barriers that we some of the things that I spoke about were a part of the study that we did, and some of it is, of course, anecdotal evidences that we see in our interaction with people across companies that we work with.
Right, right. Those are very, very important points. And I think especially the thing that you raised on the issue of a large section of Indians not having enough to kind of save or think about these future goals even. But you also mentioned, Sriram, about the financialization that is important, and how, now we are seeing more interest in SIPs or, the equity market, etc., etc. But in this whole process, I think one ray of hope is the national pension system, because it is a retirement focused instrument as I see it, which I mean, there are insurance companies and other people who are offering these annuity plans, but this is something where you can accumulate over a period of years and do a lot more, because it's becoming flexible with every passing year. So, what do you think can NPS play a major role in the retirement planning process, especially because it's also available to the unorganized sector and not just the salaried?
Absolutely. Nidhi, in fact, I have always maintained this, not just because I'm a part of the NPS industry, but having spent, close to 3 decades in the financial services domain, I can tell you with a very high degree of conviction that there is no other product, and maybe I'm saying this, and I'm saying this with a lot of conviction. There is no other product that I think comes even close to this product when you look at the basket of benefits that it offers, specifically tailored towards helping individuals create a meaningful retirement corpus. We can get into the various benefits, which I'm sure your viewers are aware, and I'm sure a number of people that I'm sure you're aware of them as well. But I still think that we have just about scratched the surface. If you look at the March 2024 ending subscriber count in NPS, net of government employees, there are only close to 55 lakh subscribers, out of which roughly 19 lakh subscribers are subscribers who are from the corporate segment, and the remaining 36 odd lakh subscribers are from the unorganized segment, as you call it, or the non-salaried segment, as you call it. And of course, we can compare this number against the number of unique mutual fund investors, number of demat accounts. Any yardstick that you use to measure this with, it pales in comparison to all of these things, right? All of the other products that we just spoke about. In my opinion, as I said earlier, this is by far the most efficient wealth creation or retirement corpus creation tool that exists in the armory that any customer can access, any subscriber, any individual can access. But other than the fact that it obviously offers a set of tax benefits, both for under the old tax regime for individuals who are, let's say, self-employed, under the ATC-CD 1B section, and of course, I don't want to really bother you with the section names, but essentially the 50,000 rupee benefit that you get over and above the 1.5 lakh benefit that one gets under ATC, and the even more powerful corporate NPS benefit that is available for salaried individuals, where one can save up to 10% of one's basic and can contribute towards this. Of course, with certain fairly generous limits, you can actually contribute to NPS. So I think the fact that it is tax advantageous to start contributing to it means that there can be a very significant impact of this over long periods of time. More importantly, I think the fact that this is possibly with the lowest cost actively managed fund, and I'm saying this with a lot of thought, is in the globe. In my opinion, there is no product which is as cheap as this across the world. If you look at the total fully loaded cost, the fund management costs are between 0.03% and 0.09%. It's a function of the assets under management that the fund manager manages. HDFC Pension at this point of time, as we speak, we are just north of 80,000 crores. Therefore, every additional rupee that comes to us gets managed at 0.05%, but the range is between 0.03% and 0.09%. Even if you include the other costs associated, minor costs that are there in account opening and as far as contribution is concerned and custodial fees and so on and so forth, the fully loaded cost is less than actually 15 basis points. Okay. Compare that to comparable actively managed funds where it would be upwards of 1.5%, 1.25 to 1.5%. And I think this can have the magnitude of impact that this can have when it comes to long-term wealth creation. And we all know that cost leakages over long periods of time can compound into a fairly large number. And let me give you a very simple example. If one starts investing at the age of 35, or whatever the age, but let's say starts investing 5,000 a month over a 25-year time horizon, a cost leakage of 1.3%, let's say the difference between 0.2% in NPS and 1.5%, and let's say in a comparable, market-linked, transparent, NAV-driven product, can have an impact of 25% on the terminal value, right? That's no small amount, right? So actually, the fact that this is a more cost-efficient product will mean that you will end up making 25% more if you use this vehicle, right? Not only does it offer tax advantages that we spoke about earlier, not only does it offer much lower costs, also look at the history of performance over the last, 10 odd years that HDFC Pension has been around for the last 10 years, but the industry as a whole, you will see, has been around since 2004. 2008-9 is when it opened up for the unorganized segment and subsequently for salaried individuals. If you look at since inception return or 10-year returns for most of the pension fund managers, you will see that the 10-year returns are in the region of 14 to 15%, which is very well comparable to some of the other comparable market-linked products that are there in the industry. And I'm referring to the equity portion of the NPS. I think there are a slew of benefits that NPS offers, low cost and tax advantages being just two of those. But I think there are features in the product which actually make sure that behaviorally, it makes sure that you are forced to you don't have an exit path. In fact, this is quoted by many people as I can't get out of the scheme once you get into it, or I can't take the money out. In my opinion, that's the biggest positive feature as far as this product is concerned, because more often than not, individuals come in their own way of creating meaningful corpuses by reacting to market noise. And this product actually insulates you from market noise and make sure that you're able to, in a disciplined manner, continue to contribute over long periods of time and are able to build a meaningful corpus. So I think there are a number of other benefits that NPS offers, but I think these are the top 2 or 3, features that I think are hugely beneficial, not very well understood. In fact, the industry has been on an overdrive, not just the industry, which is the pension fund industry, but the regulators have been nudging us along. The regulator has played a very, very big role in enhancing awareness. The government is very focused on this. So we see a lot of activity. We are very, very excited with the extent of awareness that has picked up over the last 2 to 3 years. And we are very confident that this number of 55 odd lakhs that is there currently in the non-government space, huge headroom for growth. And I think we are all excited about what NPS can do in helping Indians becoming retirement ready.
I'm sure. And I think the users and journalists and all the community is also waiting
Oh,
for it to,
but
grow
I think you
further.
guys have
Of
done a
course,
yeoman's job of making sure that we are able to shine light on this product. And I must compliment the media as well for bringing into fore the benefits of this product. I think a huge shout out to you guys as well.
thank you so much. And finally, coming to the end of this webinar, do you have any final words for our viewers on the need for retirement planning?
I think, many a times what ends up happening is that we all want to, even if there is realization that one needs to start saving, everybody starts to wait for this grand plan to come together, right? While I think it is important for one to seek professional advice, while, like if you're unwell, you would go to a doctor, you would not try to self-medicate. Of course, there are Google doctors as well these days. But, more often than not, if you have an ailment, you would end up going to a professional. If you have any legal question, you will end up going to a lawyer.
Hmm.
Likewise, as far as finances are concerned, this is so intrinsic to one's happiness in old age. I don't think you should underplay this at all. I think a lot of people think that, money is actually very, very important for you to make sure that you lead a comfortable comfortable life post-retirement. It's very important, right? And therefore, it needs to be given that importance of there has to be professional help that one needs to go out and seek. But at the same time, you don't need to necessarily wait for this grand plan to fall in place, right? And we say this to, young professionals that we interact with. We say, all you need to do is to take the first step. As a famous Chinese philosopher said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Taking the first step is important, right? And NPS products such as NPS offer this opportunity for one to embark on this journey. Under 5 minutes, you can actually open an NPS PRAN, permanent retirement account number, and start contributing to it with as less as 500 rupees, right? So there is no compulsion on you to contribute 5,000, 10,000, or 20,000 at the initiation. You can actually, there's so much of flexibility that it offers that you must take the first step. The second point is, so take the first step. Don't wait for a grand plan to fall in place. While you must have a more comprehensive retirement plan, absolutely must require, must do with the help from a professional advisor. Start the journey nevertheless, right? I mean, because the advisor at the end of the day is going to come back and make sure that you start an NPS account or such products, and you start investing in such products at an early age. The second thing is that I think start early, right? And I think all of us think this term power of compounding has been bandied about for long enough, right? All of us understand the impact of the power of compounding. It can be staggering, right? I mean, all of us look at our EPF accounts over a period of 20, 25 years, and which is compounded anywhere between, let's say, 7.5, 8.5%, and silently accumulated a very large amount of money. Imagine what can happen if that same kind of corpus can compound at the rate of 10, 11%, right? So I think start now. And, one of our chairman of PFRDA, Supradeep Bandyopadhyay, made the statement. He said, the best time to start was yesterday. If you miss that chance, now is the right time, right? And I think that rings so true. I think so. Make a beginning is the only message that I would say, right? I mean, there are a bunch of other things that we can talk about, but I think
Hmm.
make a beginning. Do that
Hmm.
now. And I think the process is so smooth. Under 5 minutes, you will have your permanent retirement account number generated, and you are good to go. I mean, all you need to do is get onto the internet, and in 5 minutes you will have started this journey. Start the journey, right? That's the only message that I would leave, because there are a bunch of other things that we can talk about, but start the journey. Start early.
Thank you so much, Sriram, for joining us today and giving us this perspective on the need for retirement planning. We, of course, touched certain topics like the barriers in retirement planning and the benefits of NPS. which we are sure to cover in detail in our later episodes with Sriram, because this is a series that you should look forward to. Keep watching. Thanks a lot.
Insurance is the subject matter of the solicitation.